setbacks from J.J. Walker Park in order to ensure that the park gets light and air. Keep those floor plates bigger so that you have more housing without having to go up higher. And we think that an appropriate maximum height for the building is something that's commensurate with those very large loft buildings all around it. Using those parameters, they can build something that more than fits within the range of the amount of housing that they are talking about. Lastly, in terms of what the building would look like, they're talking about on one end, possibly all glass, on the other end, possibly sort of this very fortress-like system with just very small windows. Those should be taken off the table. We should just look at buildings that look more or less like the buildings in our neighborhood. It's not that hard to do. If we can do that, and we can do that, and the city can do that, this will be a development that people will embrace and that will serve Greenwich Village for generations to come. And we need to make sure that it does that permanently. The last point I just want to say is, we know if there is any way that they can get out of permanent affordability, they will. There's too much economic incentive in them for it. So we have to be sure about this. Thank you.
Hello, I certainly agree with the first two speakers, and I'm really very glad to have Andrew's knowledge and ability to analyze this. My personal take is that this is one of the more pleasant parts of our neighborhood. I go there to the library. I love the playground. It's a lovely feeling, that space, that relatively open space. And I think it would be great to add affordable housing there, permanently affordable housing for families. I wonder how families would feel about going up so many stories in an elevator. That kind of building seems inimical to that space. It would feel very unpleasant. Plus, there is a terrible feeling if you have been told that it's going to be affordable housing, that it was built for that purpose, but it does not very well serve that purpose. It unfortunately erodes not only the neighborhood, the feeling of the neighborhood, but belief in our city. And it would be very sad to see that happen. And I'm so glad to be able to come here and speak. Thank you.
Thank you. The next three names, the next three speakers, Jamie McCormick, actually Jamie McCormick, Andrew Stern. Are you Jay or? Okay, are you Andrew? Okay. You're Jay McCormick? Okay, so.
Hi, my name is Judy McCormick. I lived in this neighborhood for 69 years, my whole life, in the same building, 53 years. I'd like to know, I have a few questions. What do they consider affordable housing? And what happened to the zoning laws? What about for the elderly? Nobody specifies what's going to be in this building. And that's worrisome for me. And also, what about the watershed? I mean, I wouldn't feel comfortable having a watershed with a building on top of it. And also, we're fighting for a supermarket. I mean, right now we have Trader Joe's, which is minimal, and Morton Williams, which NYU owns it and wants to get rid of. Forget about the parking, forget about the watershed, forget about the wraps. It's just unfeasible for a huge building to be put down in this neighborhood that can barely exist on what it has now. I mean, like I've lived in this neighborhood 69 years. Forget about going to Rite Aid and fearing for my life. Forget about all of that and all the changes that have occurred in the past 2 years. But this is our lives. This is not just, you know, I'm moving in here, I got a job and working from home. This is not happening. We're senior citizens, a lot of us, and what's going to be the cost of this and how is this going to get passed on? And like I said, what's being provided for the elderly? my main concern, and how high zoning laws, all these questions. Nobody's specific in what's going on. So I wish we'd have some answers. Obviously, there were no answers yet. You just can't put up a building and say, oh, it's affordable housing. What does that mean? Thank you.
Hi. My name is Andrew Stern. I'm a member of Open New York. I'm the Lower Manhattan chapter leader, and I would like to speak today in support of the 388 Hudson proposal. The West Village has produced remarkably little housing. In the past decade, the village has produced just 21 new homes and 0 affordable units. We're just not pulling our weight. Underserved communities in the Bronx, Brooklyn, and Queens have added hundreds or sometimes even thousands of new affordable homes in that time. Our numbers analysis showed that this building could support more than 300 units if built to the full proposed scale. For those of you who have been following the 5 World Trade Project, that would be almost as much affordable housing as is planned in that entire building. Some have proposed that we build fewer units. Estimates show that competing proposals for a low-rise building would produce just about 100 units. To those who would propose reducing the project to this, I would ask what you would say to the other 200 families who will no longer have a home in the village and in Hudson Square. Another earlier speaker said that the 33-story tower was a grossly inefficient use of space. I would propose just the opposite. That building any less than the highest density on this vacant lot would be a waste of one of the last empty parcels in Manhattan. Some would also say that perhaps people wouldn't want to go up so many stairs on an elevator. I would love to ask some families in New York if they'd like to ride an elevator for 10 or 15 seconds to their apartment, or if they'd like to have no affordable home in the West Village at all. The building directly across the corner is over 200 feet tall. If 388 Hudson is built to its full 33-story height, as I really hope it will, it won't even be the tallest building within a 500-foot radius. On the Hudson River, just 2 blocks away, there is a 400-something foot tall apartment tower going up, which is a mix of affordable senior housing and market rate. I would ask the Land Use Committee and CB2 to endorse the highest density proposal. It's our responsibility to our fellow citizens in New York and to our future to provide as much affordable housing as possible. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Linda Pagan. I've lived in the neighborhood for 30 years, and I have a shop right across the street. If anybody needs a hat, come by. And I've had that for 28 years. I welcome the affordable housing at 388 Hudson. I think it's a fantastic lot. I go by there every day and manifest that I'm going to have an apartment there. I am 65 years old. I live on the 5th floor of a walk-up, and I would say that this neighborhood, I've seen all the old Italians die out, and myself and other people are replacing them. So I welcome the affordable housing at 388. I think it should have multi-generational people in it. The last thing I want to do is live with a bunch of people my age and older. I would like families in that place. I would like low to moderate income. I would like single people who are struggling to get out of their apartments from their parents. It must be hell on both sides. I do have 2 considerations. That is, 30 years goes by in the blink of an eye. This is my 30th year in my apartment, and I can tell you I still feel 35 years old. So this is public land. I believe that public land needs to stay public and that it is in perpetuity. It does not revert in 30 years to something that I don't even know if any of us know if we'll even be here, you know, in 30 years. But if we have householders go in there and they're 30 with children, in 30 years, are they going to be kicked out? Or what happens? So I would like very clear and transparent wording about what affordable means, and also how long that means. I do not want developers coming in after 30 years. And I also understand that we can get more housing if the building is squatter. So I do realize that a tall building is extremely attractive to developers once it's built with public funds on public land. So, okay, so that's it. And let's just try to get to compromise. In order to make an omelet, you got to break eggs. So compromise is a great way to go.
Thank you. We have the next three, Mark Brown, John Yolohan, and then Mark Brown. My wife Lori and I are both artists. We found a house on West 11th Street about 13 years ago and restored it. And we landed in this part of the city because of the history and the architecture. And we're here to support this project and its affordable housing. But what I learned tonight was that we can maximize the amount of affordable housing, but we don't have to go as tall as some people are proposing. So I guess that's what I'm here to vote for, is a smaller building that will give people affordable housing, but fit into the streetscape and the spirit of our neighborhood, which is so beautiful. Once it's gone, we can't get it back.
Hello, my name is Lillian Migliorini. I live on Hudson Street. I'm a lifelong native New Yorker from the Greenwich Village area. And I concur with everyone that spoke this evening, minus maybe one person who wants 300 units. I really am aligned with Andrew Berman 1000% on the size and scope of the building, the number of units we should have, and the fact that we need to protect the sunlight that actually gives J.J. Walker Park its concept that it is a park. But also too, someone that was sitting by me at our table talked about supermarkets, et cetera. And it makes me think, if you're going to build a project, how do we align that with making sure we do have supermarkets, that we do have another school being built? Hudson Square is being built and there are no new schools being developed. We have no hospital on the west side of Manhattan below 60-something Street. So those are the things that I would like to be considered along with the project. Adding housing needs to be permanent 1000%, but we also need services to go with that.
Thank you. And again, John, is there John? Again, I'm mispronouncing his last name. What is this, John? Johan?
Older than 30 Charlton Street?
Yeah, John, 30 Charlton Street. No? Okay. All right. Then we'll move on to the next three. Victoria Hillstrom, Mary Ann Risman, and Bill Abrams.
Hi, everyone. My name is Victoria Hillstrom. I am here in support of 100% affordable housing. As Andrew Berman said, it must be permanently affordable. We also very strongly believe that it should be in context with the surrounding loft buildings, that this happens to be a very big lot where we can go wide instead of tall. And I would just like to say that we are absolutely tickled pink that 388 Hudson Street is being considered for affordable housing, but we just hope that we don't lose the script. We saw this happen in Battery Park, in Tribeca, and also the 21 Lucky, they call them the Lucky rent stabilized buildings in Lower Manhattan, where 20 years after 9/11, families are questioning, where will we live? And although I've only been in New York City for 30 years without giving my age away, it just seems to me that we built this city by people investing in community. And it's something that we're really very proud of. And the last thing that we would like to see is to invite people into our community. And 20 or 30 years later, we've unjustly enriched a developer that can certainly do whatever they like somewhere else. But it just seems that the spirit of Manhattan is to invite people here, to contribute to community, to build the largest economy in the world. And I don't really see the benefit of making something temporarily affordable. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Mary Ann Arisman, and I'm the co-chair of the St. Luke's Place Block Association. So we're right on the other side of J.J. Walker Park from the building that will be built. And I spoke at the full board meeting last month, and I've appeared before you before. Just want to amplify the points that I made there. St. Luke's Place Block Association is definitely in favor of affordable housing. We've said that a number of times. We just question the building that is being designed at the present time, or that has been proposed by HPD. It's too tall. We need it more in context with the buildings around it. For instance, the Printing House condominium on the other side of Hudson Street that forms the western boundary of J.J. Walker Park. And those other old printing plants that were bulky and big, but bulky, lower than 35 stories. The other thing is it has to be 100%, or it has to be permanently affordable. I've lived in my house for 33 years. I don't want to move. And before that, I rented for 3 years on the same block. It can go by very fast, and we don't want to displace families again. The other thing that St. Luke's Place is really strongly in favor of is senior affordable housing. And I think I mentioned at the full board meeting that the demographic is a growing one, senior. And boy, every other day I get a brochure in my mail with luxury senior living on the Upper East Side, the Upper West Side, up the Hudson, down in Tribeca, and over in Brooklyn Heights. They're all, the developers know this demographic and they're building for it. We need to build affordable housing for the same growing demographic. So I urge you to consider those points in building this building. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Bill Abrams. I've lived in the village for 47 years, actually right here on Sullivan Street. My kids went to school at PS3 right up from the property we're talking about. I sat through countless soccer games on J.J. Walker, and I walk by this site at least 5 times a week when I'm out walking my dog. So it's a very close personal issue for me. This is, of course, a very hard issue because we have 2 worthy public goals. Preservation of this neighborhood and increasing affordable housing. So it's a tough call. As with most tough calls in life, the secret is to find balance. I endorse the comments that many other speakers have made about permanent affordability and not have excessive height, not have a building that's, I think, maybe twice as high as other buildings. So I want to make just a couple of comments that I hope are additive. One is, from what I understand, the current plans, a considerable amount of the space is actually dedicated for community use. And while that's worthy, I think if the priority here is housing, let's use as much space as possible for housing. We'll have to address other needs other ways. The building should not be as high as is currently talked about. And also the exterior of the building, the finish of the building, the materials, whatever, is important. And some of the things I've seen have talked about either suggest an all glass building or something with tiny punched windows. So in addition to having an appropriate height, it's important that the design be compatible and appropriate with the neighborhood. So thank you.
Okay. And I think we have one speaker, and it's not Evans. If there's anyone else that would like to speak that I haven't called, if you'd like to go ahead and.
Good evening. I actually go by Scott, but so it's actually interesting. I've been to two of the design meetings around this building. One was the in-person, one was the virtual. And when I think about this a minute, it's actually kind of interesting. There's a lot of people in those design meetings that don't live in our neighborhood, but try to drive a voice into what should happen with this building. So, you know, let's take a pin in that for a minute. It's almost interesting. And then when I'm at the meeting, the options given, I'm like, okay, maybe we'll design something the height of the printing house. No, it's just like massive storied building. Interesting. And then the options that are given as far as like who can actually be committed. There was like, you know, is there a senior option? No, there was a senior option. Is there a way we as a community can ensure that like X amount of those buildings are reserved for teachers? Or maybe firemen, or people that, or seniors that work in our neighborhood. So that there's truly a building, right, where it's affordable, that folks that work in our community can live. So then I thought about it for a minute because, you know, I work at one of those developers that maximizes the conversion of affordable housing to market rate. And I'm like, so if it's not permanent, there won't be any affordable housing in 20 or 30 years, and it'll totally be converted. And I'm like, all those folks that came to these meetings trying to push full-on affordable housing to maximize it, there won't be any. Are we naive? No, I don't think so. So I'd like to say that it should be no higher than the printing house. It should be 100 units because that was the design spec that was supposed to be put in place. It should have a grocery store. It may be kind of a medical location in the first floor that's good for the neighborhood. And it needs to be permanent. Because otherwise, we're just playing into a game. It's going to get converted by a developer to monetize it, and there's no benefit. So why do it? That's my.
I think it's absolutely pathetic that we only have 388 Hudson to discuss. When I was younger, we had Mitchellama. They were sprouting all over, and they were elegant. They had terraces. They were entirely affordable. And now look what's happened to them with the termination rate for selling rooms. So really, of course, I'm for the maximum kind of housing to be erected to Hudson, and that it should serve a cross section, studios as well as multiple rooms. And it should be built to go on to the city, the state, and the government Buildings and the developers are affordable housing absolute. So this is really what we should go after. And as far as the area is concerned, bless us all. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think those are the public speakers we have. I think as we move this into discussion, I think we'd like to I just want to make sure that we understand where we are in the process. So just kind of by show of hands, how many people have been to the visioning sessions? Good, that's a good turnout. Okay. I think so from we've had conversations, and the conversations that we've been having so far with HPD, I think what was presented there is apparently not, that's not the final design. So those were meant to be, discussion points. So the design of the building will be coming during the unit phase. So that is when I think discussions about how harmony and materials and all of that will happen. What HPD is trying to do at this point is solicit feedback as to what should be there in terms of also what we're supposed to get feedback on options for the ground floor in terms of the non-residential usage of the space. And conversations about the height and the design basically coming at a later date. So I just wanted to throw that out there. This isn't we're not late to that discussion. That discussion hasn't really happened yet. Sure, there's a question in the back. So the question is it a done deal? I don't know. It's not a done deal. I think until the ULURP happens, nothing's really a done deal. But in terms of, are we going to build affordable housing there? I mean, I think that process has started. Obviously, so they are, they're going to, the city's committed resources. They have a team to get feedback and issue an RFP for the site, for that lot. So I guess in that respect, I mean, it is on the process to becoming affordable housing. What they've said is it's going to be a process that takes multiple years. So the question about the water tunnel. So DEP is also in these talks with Department of Housing and Preservation. So they manage the water tunnel site. I believe they actually still own the site technically, but they will be involved with this up until through the ULURP process, probably all the way through groundbreaking, because that is their goal is to make sure that nothing threatens the water supply for the city. So that is always going to be the first guardrail on this development, is that whatever's built there cannot endanger the water supply for the city. They've made that very clear in the discussion so far. So does that answer your question about the watershed? It will not, no. So if you pass by the site, right? So there's the whole site. There's a line that they've drawn between the northern portion of the site and the southern portion of the site. So the southern portion will be developed into a park, and those discussions are happening, as part of discussions further with the Parks Department. The northern portion will be essentially ceded control of that to Housing and Preservation, and so the northern portion of that lot will be developed. So one of the first discussion points was how much, where is that line going to be? And I think I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it's not quite 50-50. But they did divide the lot. So it's a 25,000 square foot lot. And I believe 13,000 some square feet is allocated to the housing and the rest for the park. Do I have that right? The largest portion is for the park, right? Roughly. Or do I have it backwards? Is it backwards? Okay. The larger, sorry, so I do have it backwards. So the larger portion on the northern side is for the housing, and the smaller portion on the southern will be for open park space, open recreation space. Yes, question.
I'm in real estate myself, and I'm thinking right now, because you said the question that you're trying to get to put there. Before we go ahead and start.
Sorry, we have a mic.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
You said we're at the point where we're deciding what we should put there, and then we'll get to the other things later. And I said I was in real estate, and when I'm in real estate, I'm looking around the city at everything that's around. And I heard a lot of suggestions tonight, which are really amazing. And I just want to point out that there are buildings in the city that have schools under the building. You need a supermarket. Instead of talking about what we're going to do at the first floor, why don't we keep the 100 units, but start them on the 4th floor so that you wind up having a supermarket on the 1st floor and a school on the next 2 floors. Now, they did this, if anybody's familiar with the Gary building down on Wall Street, they have a school on the first 3 floors of that building. And I think if you could have a supermarket and a school and then have affordable housing permanently as a large box that you're trying to create, keep it contextual with the neighborhood, I think that's a win-win for everybody. And it's not just for the people who can't afford to live there. It's for the people who can afford to live there, but don't have the services that they need. I think it's an excellent solution. And I think you should, investigate that.
Thank you for the comment. And so in terms of that specific site, so it is right next to City as School. So there are 2 schools right next to that. Sorry?
Yeah, so I mean, you have to look at what's there. And one thing I just want to add, and this is my own shtick. I'm driving on the Long Island Expressway coming to the Midtown Tunnel, and I'm starting not to recognize my city anymore. And it looks like when you go over to 57th Street, some realtors are just giving you the middle finger and saying, we're going to do whatever we want, and this is what your city's going to look like. And I think that view corridors are not only just corridors, but they're also what you're seeing above the buildings. That's another view corridor. You're seeing a neighborhood. And when your neighborhood starts to get enveloped with things that are totally out of context, we are losing that neighborhood, and it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And I just want to say that I'm somebody who grew up in NYCHA housing my first 22 years of my life. And all I wanted to do was come to the city eventually and be able to afford to live here. I was fortunate enough to be able to do that, but I am seeing my city disappearing right before my eyes. And I think that, for the sake of $1, we're selling the city out to a lot of developers who are the ones who are benefiting the most. And being in real estate, I know it sounds crazy, but I am totally into preserving and keeping what we have, because that's what attracts people to Manhattan. And that's all I have to say. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, you ready? Okay, thank you everyone for all your comments. We are going to close the public session now. The committee members will deliberate on the 2 agenda items.
The first one is the budget and capital expenses. I think we've had some very good comments and additions. We have them in writing. We promised that we will update the document in the drive. So is there any further comments from the committee on the capital and budget expense needs? I know that Mark wants them as soon as possible because we need them tomorrow night. Yep. Other comments? Can we have a vote then? All in favor of adopting as amended in the meeting, please say aye. Any noes? Recusals, abstentions? Passes unanimously. Let me just write that down. I'm thinking of it. Thank you to the committee. Okay, now we would like to go over the second agenda item. And Eugene and I envisioned responding to the community vision sessions that we all, so many of us attended, and many committee members attended as well, and other board members. And we appreciate the additional comments that we've heard tonight. Unfortunately, this is only the time for the committee, Andrew, so you have to wait. You can talk to us afterwards. Thank you. Mark is going to bring up something that Mark is going to bring something up on the screen that we put together based on the both the in-person and the virtual meetings for us to consider tonight and to bring to the for board on Thursday.
Yeah. I have some copies for printed copies for committee members if they like them. My printer conked out around between 5 and 6 tonight. Oh, John Paul definitely needs one. Anybody else? Yeah, Sean would like me. Hold on, yeah. Anybody else? Oh, no, it's not. Okay. Thanks, Anita. I know we bounced around the city there. Okay, so is it? Yeah, thank you so much, Mark. That's much better in terms of the size. So the first 3 items, and many thanks to Frederica for number 3, suggesting some language there. The first 3 items are the historical record of the resolutions that we've passed so far. I don't think there's any need to comment on those. Am I wrong? No. Following that, it's a little discussion of what's coming next. What has just occurred in terms of community engagement meetings, and those of you who are in the virtual meeting know that we expect we expect before the end of the year for just 1 second. Remember my thought. We expect by the end of the year. That we'll have a community vision report and from HPD. So do I see some new other further members of the community? King Berger, Patricia Lavanda, Matt Metzger, and Hayward, my neighbor.
Thank you, Emma. And I see a former community board member, Jonathan Jabal. Thank you for joining us tonight, Jonathan. And thanks for voting for the. We can put it on the community board drive. Thank you. So number 4 is a little bit about the process that we're involved in with HPD. I hope that, and number 5 is something that we're all talking about tonight together, the importance of 100% permanent affordable housing. This is something that everyone agrees on. We hear time and time again. Deborah Glick spoke, I think, at our last board meeting about it and sent a letter to HPG last week on the matter. So this is something that's far and wide agreed upon. Number 6. We know that HPD is looking at a variety of zoning options, which will help maximize the housing, and we hope keep the bulk to a contextual level as possible. Number 7 is very important. I think this lady is her name, Jay. Jay talked about the fact that we're very concerned about the water tunnel, and working with DEP is extremely important. And we know HPD is continuing to work with them, and we're encouraging them to have discussions and to bring the point of view to DEP, because that's very important. Chris, did you have your hand up about one of those things? You want to get a Oh, well, the board. He's a board. He's a here. Yeah, it's okay with me. Thank you for doing this.
When DEP came and visited us at the Parks Department, they talked about how they will never give us anything below the ground. Like they're basically putting like a park. It's like lipstick on a pig. Everything underneath that is industrial. Like it's so secretive that they didn't really want to tell us that it's all part of the water infrastructure. So it's number 7 is almost certainly not going to happen according to DEP. So I just thought
yes, we have heard that, but HPD has not closed that discussion off from what we hear. So, but we're not giving up, Chris. We're going to keep asking. Okay, thank you for the insight. Number 8 is something else that has come out tonight over and over in every communication that we have received. Thank you, Andrew. How we want appropriate design. You know, this is a building that is between 2 districts, and it couldn't be more important to us to acknowledge both districts. Yes, Sean, wait a minute. You can't just, no.
Yeah, before it was branded as Hudson Square, it was known as the printing district. And I really, it was so amazing to hear people bring that up again. So regarding the bulk of and height of the proposed building, it really should be in context, not only with the Greenwich Village Historic District, but with the printing district.
Well, many years ago,
a unique type of building.
Yeah, many years ago, I worked to Newmarket, but the city didn't. Yeah, you remember, Sean, thank you. The city wouldn't bite. Number 9, number 9, the guarantee of long-term affordability. They've stated openly it would be rent stabilized, which today means in perpetuity, but we know that rent stabilization is always under attack by the real estate industry. So we've really got to focus on that. Oh, sure, please. I think we should toughen that up a little bit. Okay. How would you do that?
I don't know that I have the proper language on the tip of my tongue, but to say we're encouraged that they've explained, I feel that we should stiffen the language so that we're holding them to that explanation, and we should expand on what it is they actually said. I don't think we have to discuss the actual language right now, but I think this is a little vague. And I also think I'm not sure that when we get to the whereases that we enforce that as part of the deal. Okay, the resolve, right. And I think it's helpful for people to know that the work that we're doing now is to inform HPD's request for proposals so that when it goes out to the developer, if HPD does their job, they will guide the developer toward what it is the community wants, so that the developer, when they're actually designing the building, it will be the developer who designs the building with his or her team, will understand what we're looking for, and it will kind of grease the wheels towards the community during the work process. So it's by no means a done deal. But I don't believe that we enforce our demand for permanent affordability therefore. So let's take a look when we get there.
That's good. And it's something that I think the conversation tonight has helped us focus on that. So Frederica, thank you for pointing that out. And thank you to our members of the public. Of course, from the beginning, the committee and the board has said that we want a recreation facility at this project, and we want it to be run by the New York City Department of Parks. We don't want another Equinox or, you know, something. We want something that's really accessible to everybody, and I think we deserve it. So we're underlining that. Oh, sure. Take the mic, Anita.
Does that work? Good. I've been thinking a lot about all these things. One of them about what we want in the ground floors. I think in the spirit of creating a building that everybody's going to love, that it really needs to do this bridge between Hudson Square, which in parts is very empty and quiet and not particularly safe feeling at night, I would say, so that it should bring some kind of life that makes it nice to live on. That's Greenwich Village. That people can look out their windows and see what's going on. That's Jane Jacobs. So really basic principles that's going to, regardless of what it is, but that it invites a feeling of safety and security and the spirit of going. I actually see it with two faces. It's like there must be some mythological name for that, but you know, the face towards the north. What is that? And the face to the south, and is a great opportunity because it allows us to have two different massings and two different expressions in a way, even without knocking you on the head with something tall and narrow.
Okay. Well, thank you. I made a note.
Quality of the space rather than what it is. Yeah.
Valerie, can you give Valerie the mic, Anita, or Carter, or someone?
Oh, yeah. Can you put up, Mark?
I quickly skimmed, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I quickly skimmed the list. Are we going to put anything in context of how many we're measured as a community district by the number of units that we add or take away? I know that's something that's we're trying to document that more in landmarks as we see these units combined, et cetera, and we lose units. So is there any sort of number or data point we can put in there that shows over the last so many years or something that gives context to why that maximizing the number of units is important by what we've either had added or subtracted or where we are in that? I think DCP has that data.
And as always, I'm going to just add that I prefer to say maximizing the square footage versus the number of units, because you get a mix of units and we don't want anyone to get stuck on a number and all of a sudden we're only getting studios. So I think it's important to look at the square footage for the affordable housing.
Is number 5.
Mark, I'm sorry, if you could put back number 5. Number 5, Jean, we continue to press for maximizing the FAR. Does that answer your question, do you think? Is that?
Can I?
Let Janine and then you can go later. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, yes, Anita?
Just to piggyback on that. Skyscrapers are not particularly efficient. I just wanted to point that out and put that in everybody's mind, because the narrower and the taller, the more you need elevators and stairs. You need all of that, whether it's, you know, a long distance horizontally, but the higher up you go, the less efficient it is. So I think that in itself should dictate that we need more units, and even maybe more units facing the street and enlivening the street than taller units where people are kind of isolated. So again, we're creating a space that people want to live in, be part of, make it safe. So it's not very efficient.
Thank you. Our committee architect. Thank you, Anita. Okay. So the mask and the glasses are a bit of a challenge, so just take a minute. Number 11, we do appreciate the many opportunities that HPD has already given us and that we're going to continue to have with them. Even though we don't always like the answers, they keep coming back. Maybe they don't like our comments either, but they keep coming back, so we'll give them a pat. Therefore, be it resolved. I know that Federico has a comment here. So we do request. I know that Andrew received a letter from HPD about affordability, but we request as a community board to get something similar. Yeah, thank you. We do request as a community board to get something lighting. Is there any problem with that? Hands? Lois wants to say something. Stella.
So this community board tutorial on what is considered affordable housing, because it seems that the word is just figments, and I think that it should be an expression of what is considered affordable, particularly in that zip code or in that area. And the other point is what is considered a senior. What is an AARP age? Is Social Security age? What defines a senior? New York City
currently defines a senior for housing as 62 or older. I know there's lots of different definitions of seniors. That's the one for housing. Affordable housing is based on a percentage of area median income, which is for the MSA, which includes the suburbs, New York City. It's not a neighborhood thing. And frankly, so in some of the poorest parts of the city and our neighborhood, which is what the governments have the same formulas, and as a percent, it's the affordability level is based on income as a percentage of the area median income and family size. So the bigger the family, the more money, the larger the apartment you can get, the more money that you would need to earn the affordability level. And those samples were all included in the slides that HPD presented in both of their sessions, and I think at previous CB2 meetings. There will be a certain percentage of the units that will be set aside no matter what for the formerly homeless and for very low income people. And there were sort of two to three bands. If the highest percentage is affordable ownership, home ownership, but I don't think that's going to be considered here. I think it's going to be some of the rental bands. Okay, thank you. Yeah, also, thank you. Okay. Frederica, this goes back to your earlier point, so maybe you'll agree. In the spirit of strengthening
our demand, or as it says, request for permanent affordable housing. Maybe instead of just requesting a written explanation of the mechanisms and guarantees of the permanence, maybe we can request that those mechanisms are built into their RFP. Maybe I doubt that they're thinking about doing that, but that would go to Frederica's point earlier, or maybe it was someone from the public who was saying that if they were to do something like that, then they would attract a developer who would be automatically on board with.
I think that's a great idea. I was going to suggest that we insert CB2 in the first whereas, the first therefore. CB2 reemphasizes its commitment to permanently affordable housing at 388 Hudson and requests, as the language follows, and asks that be a condition of the RFP.
Let's do it both and, whether we keep the written explanation and the RFP.
That's what I was saying.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Okay. The language as you have it, after we've re-emphasized, I don't understand what 100% permanently affordable. We want permanently affordable, and we want it to be 100% affordable. But 100% permanently affordable, I think, is a misnomer.
That's just about right.
So we'll just say, and that this be a condition of the RFP. That's a great idea, Stella.
Okay, thank you. Thank you both. Can we move on to number 2? Okay, number 2, CB2 supports the examination of the variety of zoning scenarios to maximize SFR without sacrificing the need to produce a contextual building with respect to materials, window sizes, etc., just to name a couple of things. Any comments on that? Okay, moving on. 3, CB2 supports HPD's identifying further methods to address the overall height of the building without sacrificing FAR. For example, by increasing the height of the base, which we've heard a lot about tonight. So thank you to the community for focusing on that, and prioritizing setbacks on the Hudson Street facade only, maybe. We should add only at the end of that. Well, ask your question, so why do we need to do that?
Setbacks on the Hudson side. Why are we designing the building?
Oh, on the southern?
Yeah, can you?
Do we want to say prioritizing setbacks or some other?
Just permit that there's eliminate the need for setback.
Okay. Okay. Fine. That's very helpful. And number 4, CB2 supports any other comments on that? Excellent. CB2 supports HPD discussions with DEP, including the following topics. We're sort of going back to the setback, but I think there's the HPD consideration on it and the DEP consideration on it. So I don't mind hearing on that. Someone objects. Ability to build below grade levels for the building, keeping them top. What Chris has said. Yes, sure, that'd be great.
I mean, I have no problem asking for it, but we have a big problem with the resiliency, and more and more, it's very expensive. So at the end, we still want more units.
Yeah. So
be aware that with the flooding and all, it's not.
So below grade is not really the panacea. We're looking. I mean, it's. I think what we're asking for is we want the flexibility to have additional space.
I'm all for it, but it's not expensive.
And it can't be residential space at all because you can I'm just emphasizing Well, and the transfer development rights. Should we be more specific about the transfer development rights from the south to the north?
Southern portion to the
Yeah. Yeah, okay, I think that would be better.
Why is that so? What are we asking for there?
Well, has not agreed to allow
their development rights to be put into the housing section. And it's one thing that we've asked for because we wanted housing everywhere and the sites and everything. It's something that they're still, somebody in HPD is still talking to them about, I'm sure.
One of our original resolution.
Is that something? Because I thought they actually ran the phone on stuff.
Hear that question? Do we actually want to encourage the transfer of development rights if it makes too big a building?
From the property. Yeah, certainly, why not?
But if it gives the developer the right to just go too tall.
If it gives us more units, I mean, isn't that what we're talking about?
Well, okay, I don't.
Yeah, it's already our position.
You have to go through all of that.
For a small number of units is we want to make a really big contribution here. This is our spot. This is our moment. There's not that much land that we can work with. So I say go for it. Yeah.
Well, it's consistent with what we've said. It's consistent with our position. So we'll keep it. Yeah, it's an option.
See what it produces.
Yeah, good point. 6, CB2 continues to support the creation of a multi-story New York City Parks Department full-service recreation facility at the base of the building. Any comments on that? Oh, Matthew, you've got to come up and get a microphone if you want to participate. No, keep the thing from the back. Excuse me.
One, I think it should be 5. And I'm so sorry for commenting on 4. I think it's included on the following topics. And then could we just describe what the transfer of development rights is? That would be perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Matthew, for your excellent eye on the numbering. Always want to keep us in line. Any further comments overall? Stella, can you have a mic for me?
Sure, this is just actually 2 questions. I don't know if they've come up in conversation with HPD already. I only attended the Zoom workshop, so I don't know what happened with the first one. But the first question, these don't affect our resolution necessarily, but have they discussed whether the eventual residents in the building, will they be monitored each year to see if they're still income eligible, and if they move out of the income bracket, will they be kicked out of the building? Has that been discussed at all?
Jimmy, no.
No. Okay.
It's a one-time income threshold, so you get in and you can become a but no matter, it's still your permit.
Then I just have a follow-up question. Have they discussed succession rights at all to the children of the adults that live there when the one time?
Well, that's an interesting point. If it is rent stabilized but under law, that is the succession rights are defined in state law.
I know that for NYCHA, I'm pretty sure they're
stabilized.
Right, but I think that they do have succession rights.
Yes, and Michigan has succession rights too. And I think that Section 8 has succession rights, but they're not as broad as either rent stabilization or Michigan. So let's get to that later on. Keep in the background, but that's a well. I hadn't thought of that. Thank you, Stella. Okay, and the overall points, detailed points. I got harder.
So I just wanted to talk to something that Anita and I were speaking about a couple of days ago, which is focusing. Let's just see if I have my very brief notes here. Focusing a little bit on something that would address creative problem solving and a focus on the excellency of design. And that's something that's not in here, and it's not something that's generally raised in these types of projects, but this is because of where it is located, and bridging these two neighborhoods really can be an example of what good projects can do, where they're more welcomed into communities. And that's very difficult to articulate, but I think it is something that we should address, because
I would suggest, Carter, in therefore be resolved number 2, that we could add the excellent phrase.
Yeah, and I need a few minutes to work on something. I'm not sure I could do it right at this moment, and maybe work with it with Anita in a way that's, it's not a definitive, but it's a request of higher.
I think we had something in our last reso that Anita had pulled out, or 2 resos ago. It's also, I think we want to emphasize that too is a priority, that we're looking for that. It's a requirement that it not be your average, ordinary, anywhere USA building, but that it really has sensitivity and excellence. Why not? We must have that. There's all this effort. Let's have something that's successful and that everybody can be proud of and enjoy living there. You do want people to like where they live, because that creates the right atmosphere, affordable or not.
Well, in July, thanks to you, Anita, July had a certain place. The need to approach the architecture of this new important building creatively with the standard of design excellence that will complement and respect the adjacent Greenwich Village Historic District. So that was something that you had asked before.
T-shirt. I think that's what we need.
It would be nice to advocate for that to be included within the RFP.
Yes. Okay, so where do you want to put it?
Number 8, where it says and we could also reinforce it in the therefore. But Anita, are you thinking about the design and construction excellence program of the DDC or something else?
No, I just happen to know about the GSA, which is a federal document, and the level of design is so far superior, and it's a race for all the great architects to do great work. And this,
but that's a federal program.
I know, but it's just what I have familiarity with, but I don't know that there is a city one. I just don't know. I'm not familiar with it.
Katie, I think something like that could maybe fit into this.
Cheapest everything, it's not the lowest, cheapest fee. It's not. I think that's where the problem occurs, that everything has to be the lowest bidder, the lowest. And sometimes it doesn't save money. And that design is very expensive, enormously expensive. And if you just pay a little more and you have your criteria a little more flexible than just the lowest bidder.
So do we think we should repeat, and I know Donna has something to say, should we repeat whereas about design excellence?
I think we should repeat it until we can't repeat it anymore.
Okay, Donna?
I was just going to say, if you want to add it into the therefore be a result, it might fit into number 2, where it's without sacrificing the need to produce a contextual building with respect to materials, windows. I think that's what we're sort of getting at there.
And Carter, are you going to send us more language, or are you happy with what we have?
I mean, I think you have it. I think that summed it up. I also, since we're commenting on the elements of where we are in the process, that in the visioning process, right, that we should comment very specifically on not having an interest in either of the extremes of the windows, which I'm just noticing is not in here.
Say that again.
Four window options that we should comment that the two ends, the bookends, are not desirable, which is the full floor windows or the punched windows. The punched windows or the full floor, that either of those are not desirable. I'm just going back to the visioning workshop.
Where do you want us to put that, Carter?
Right.
Where do you want us to put it, Carter? Where does it go?
Well, I would personally think that's important to have that as a therefore be it resolved, but I'm
Is anyone objecting to put it in the house?
Could build it out a little bit. But
I'm not trying to design the building, just not either end. You just
well, you could say more in character.
Well, if you participated in, I don't know if you'd gone to them, they give 4 options for the windows, and I think it's very important that we just make a statement that the smaller punched windows and the full floor to ceiling are not of interest, because we've repeatedly heard that, I think. Correct. Right, that's right. And it can be included in there.
It's done with a lot of creativity. I mean, if somebody knows what they're doing, they could build it out of a lot of things and it would be successful. So I don't really know what they have in mind. Let's put it there. Yeah, anything. I mean, if it's handled with great care.
Okay. I got it. And I believe once before we had put in something about wanting them to show us the RFP before it was released. We have said that before. I don't know if we still want to have, we wanted to see the RFP.
We did.
To be able to comment on it before it's released. Do we still want to put that in the therefore be it resolved? It's in where the whereas, but we think we could put it, yeah, we should put it in the resolve.
It was part of our, that was part of our July, the last resolution, and you're suggesting we re-emphasize that. I mean, I think that's a good idea, considering that's the next.
It's pretty important to the committee to see what they were putting out before they were putting it out and have the ability to comment on it in case they ignore absolutely.
I think this is our last chance to say that, because by the RFP will be issued, you know, within the next, I would say 2 months, right? So I don't think we would have another chance to say.
Okay, that's great. Okay.
I just want to make one comment. I want to make a little shout out to Andrew, my old friend and comrade, that we made some comments tonight about design and some of Anita's comments, and I hope that we can work together on punching on those together. Okay, Andrew, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, Janine, is there anything that you think we should cover, or anything that hasn't been said that you wanted to comment on tonight? Sorry, I'm putting you on the hot seat, but you know, you should be used to it. Want to just correct some facts because but I think all the people who made them left. But in terms of the school, there will be a school in Hudson Square, and unfortunately, it's going to be in the base of a building, so we're on the developer's timetable. But they have filed preliminary plans, and that will be closer to Canal Street. And we're hoping to get a school on the NYU campus as promised 11 years ago. So my gut is that you probably don't need a school here because you've got PS3, 75 Morton, and City as school, which is a good school for certain people. It's not a perfect school for everyone. So I just want to remind people that that is not necessarily something that is needed in the neighborhood. And when my children were younger, which is a long time ago, City School was our zoned high school. And if you know, they had to leave their high school, that's where they had to go. So I don't know if that's still their policy, but that was, our high schools are citywide right now. Okay, things have changed. And Susan is our board chair. Is there anything that you would like to say? Anything that we've that you need us to focus on more? Well, we appreciate you being here tonight. It's very important. Super.
Yes, and I just wanted to piggyback on what Janine said is, I think it's important to be mixed. I mean, school could be a little too much too. So if we could spread out the goods, that would be really good and have something that the neighborhood needs, and maybe that would be better than too much of the same kind of occupancy, regardless of what it is.
But we've really focused on a recreation center. We've been trying to drive that point home. So is there any, really all these little changes and major changes and excellent input, is there any reluctance to vote on the resolution as amended and edited? Okay. Is there anyone opposed? Any recusals? Any abstentions? Then I am going to mark it down as passed unanimously. Is that okay with everyone? Okay, I thank you. I thank the public for coming, and I think you did a pretty good job. So, committee members, pat yourselves on the back.